all these years teaching, what do you hope will be your legacy at the museum?
Well, what people have been saying to me this week, and which has really made me feel good, is that I brought them to life. That I brought the Egyptians to life, and I think maybe the dinosaurs too. But the mummy as Aunt Zhao, and trying to think, what was his life like? What was it like to be him way back then, to be born in those years of turmoil in Egypt as he was? And I try to help students and adults to see that, what it was like to be alive back then, whenever it was. Or to be a dinosaur, as the case might be.
Recently you were on the BBC production A Tutankhamun
Yes,
show
yeah.
that was filmed last year in Egypt. What has been your favorite experience as a star of documentaries?
I think my very favorite is the best story, which was the discovery of a mummy down in Niagara Falls, Ontario, who looked a heck of a lot like Ramses II and his father Seti I, and who seems to be they're part of that family who seems to be Ramses I. So that was a very nice experience for me, meeting him and finally seeing him in Egypt, where he's got a beautiful mausoleum and is a very happy mummy. But also the Nova did a show about that, which is very nice, called The Mummy Who Would Be King. And that is, I think, the nicest overall Egyptian special I've seen. They did a beautiful.
Which, of all the mummies you've worked with or know of, which is your very favorite and why?
Oh, well, I would really like to see more study of a little girl named Nesmut, who lived about 2,900 years ago. Her remains are in the Royal Ontario Museum. They haven't been properly studied yet. She died when she was about 11 years old. And you can tell just by looking at her skull. She was a beautiful little girl. And it would be interesting to know, what did she die of? What happened to take this lovely little girl away from her family? They gave her a very nice coffin. It's in the Royal Ontario Museum. It's a very plain coffin, but whoever painted it knew her, because it's not the average basic bunch of pictures. There are 3 pictures of her on the outside of the coffin and 2 more on the inside of the coffin. And that's pretty wonderful. And her name is written on it. So it's not, a first-class royal coffin, but it's a coffin made for that little girl by somebody who knew her, and I think somebody who loved her and wanted her name not to be forgotten.
Tell me about the discovery this year of Justine's real name,
Yes.
Nefermut, which you were responsible for. Tell me how that came about.
Well, she was briefly on display around 1992 when the Egyptian gallery was being set up, and Aunt Zhao and Jedma Atsang had to go and get their makeup done, get their hair cleaned. And I got to know her very well. And there were some thoughts that she might be a male, because she was associated with a male coffin. And it was a very feminine forehead, I thought. Male foreheads are different. And I really thought, this is a girl, this is a woman. And so Dr. Lynn Green from Toronto and I called her Justine, because she's justified. Her coffin had been on display a couple of times, but it was never on display in good light. And now she went down to Kitchener last fall to be with the museum in Kitchener. They did a lovely display there. And incredible, wonderful technician of the Egyptian department, Bill Pratt, had taken some really fine photographs of it, digital camera.
Oh, okay.
And I had them on my computer.
Uh-huh.
So I went looking through these pictures, which were, of course, much clearer than I'd ever seen the coffin in real life. And I was looking through it and I said, oh, there's the name. And I started looking very carefully at all the hieroglyphs on the coffin. And it's not a first-rate coffin. It's a little sloppy. Wow. So her name was there, and it had always been there. But I think you needed the good digital camera and the computer where you can, change the resolution. And it was obvious what the name was. But I understand why nobody had seen it before, because I hadn't seen it before.
And what has been your proudest career accomplishment? If you look back on your 24-odd years as an Egyptologist, in and outside of the ROM, because you've led many tours, done many projects, what have you really...
Well, I was invited to speak in Sudan by the government of Sudan, and went there and gave some talks, and that was very pleasant. I really liked Sudan. Wonderful people, terrific food, and beautiful sights. So actually I was talking about Canada.
Really?
Yeah, I was talking about Canada and our museum and how it works.
Any thoughts on who has been really instrumental in giving us a place in Canadian Egyptology, who has made a mark in terms of Canadians in the field. And
Well, there have been some really splendid people, and a lot of women who have not got the credit
Really?
they deserve, like Winifred Needler, who was a very fine Egyptologist and was the keeper of Egyptian antiquities at the museum at the ROM.
that was
For
in
quite a
the
while.
50s and 60s?
In the 50s.
50s.
Well, you have to give the credit, first of all, to Dr. Charles Trick Corelli, who was the first director of the museum, and an Egyptologist and a really charming guy, and was able to bring back from Egypt an unbelievably good collection. He had no money, but other Egyptologists gave him stuff, and he was able to collect things. Every gaffer, every antiquities dealer knew him. He got a lot of wonderful stuff without paying for it. Just from his charm and his goodness and his helpfulness. So Corelli is the main one. Without him, there'd be nothing. Don Redford, Dr. Donald Redford, who is one of the most important Egyptologists, and a man who just knows everything about the field, and whose knowledge of philology is only equaled by his skill as an archaeologist. You can't beat Don Redford as an Egyptologist.
You will be returning to Egypt. How many times have you been to Egypt now?
I've actually lost track, which is kind of nice.
Really?
So
over 10?
Over 20.
Oh my goodness! I had no idea. Well, what is
Next
most
spring.
exciting about going? We're going through the middle of the country with
Oh,
you,
yeah.
and what were you most looking forward to, and what's unique about the tour that you'll be participating in?
Well, I like Middle Egypt. I thought it was a lovely place. I loved seeing Beni Hassan for myself the last time I was there. It'd be great to see that again. I always figure if you see something just once, it doesn't really count. You know, because you're just going, ah! And you have to go 2 or 3 times to actually look. So going back to Amarna and seeing Barry Kemp again will be great fun because, again, it was so astonishing to be there last time and to hear Barry talk. It's an amazing sight, isn't it? What a strange place to build a city. And those strange people. Akhenaten is, I don't like him, but he certainly is one of the most interesting characters in history.
Yeah. Why today should everyone learn about ancient Egypt? What have we got to learn from them?
Well, I think at the moment, if you walk down the street, everybody's got their cell phone. And everybody's focused right here. And I think studying ancient history helps us to move out a bit and forget our world and the things that we think, you've got to have a cell phone, you've got to have a computer, and you've got to have this, and I've got to have my tea. Things we've all got to have. And here are these astonishing people, the ancient Egyptians, who managed quite well without tea or chocolate or coffee, and certainly without cell phones or computers, and had such a human time. They wrote wonderful poetry, they wrote wonderful religious and philosophical speculations, and they built some pretty nifty things like pyramids and great big temples. They opened the world up to us. The world is not here and now and who we are right now. This isn't the human race. The human race is bigger and more interesting than that.
What's exciting about retirement from the ROM now? What are you looking forward to most? What are you going to be doing?
Well, for the last 24 years, I've been teaching at the ROM. And when I got there, I said the other day that I knew everything about dinosaurs and everything about Egypt, and discovered pretty quickly that I knew nothing about anything. And I've been teaching evolution, I've been teaching physical anthropology, I've been teaching Japan and China and all kinds of stuff. And it will be really nice and maybe a bit of a relief that I can read anything I want, but I can actually concentrate on Egypt. And I want to spend a lot of time on Egypt and on the things that I'm pretty good at, but I could be a lot better if I weren't also worrying about dinosaurs quite so much.
If you were a pharaoh,
Oh my.
which pharaoh would you be?
Well, it'd have to be Hatshepsut, I suppose, because she's a woman king. But it might be interesting to be Nitocris back in the 6th dynasty, just because we don't know enough about that period. Wouldn't it be cool to be back there and seeing what was happening? Although the country's probably falling apart. Sarmeknefer was another woman king from the Middle Kingdom. What was her life like? What was going on then? We know a lot about Hatshepsut, so it's fairly easy to think yourself into her shoes or her sandals.
Maybe you'd like to just spend about 10 years in each person's body.
I would, rather than being Hatshepsut, I would like to be Nefermut. I would like to be the woman next door to Nefermut, or maybe Nesmut's aunt.
Well said. Thank you very much, Gail Gibson.
Thank you very much.